There's this one word that's sending absolute shockwaves through the global economy right now, and it's got investors everywhere on edge. That word? Tariffs. So today, we're going to break down exactly what they are, the wild history behind them, and most importantly, what all this drama actually means for your money.
And get this, that's the exact phrase people are using to describe what's happening in the market. And listen, that's not an exaggeration. It's a perfect reflection of the genuine panic that's setting in on trading floors and inside investment accounts all over the world.
And that panic? Well, it's for a good reason. We just witnessed one of the largest single-day drops in stock market history. I mean, years and years of growth, seemingly just wiped out in a matter of hours. So the big question is, what on earth could cause a drop that massive, that historic? Let's unpack the event that sent a chill down the spine of pretty much every single investor out there. It turns out this entire mess, all of this economic chaos, is being blamed on something called reciprocal tariffs. Basically, that just means countries are hitting each other back and forth with these new taxes. It's a super complex issue, but it really all boils down to this one powerful tool being used on a massive scale.
Now, before we get into the whole global chess match that's playing out, it's absolutely crucial that we understand the main game piece. So let's break down what a tariff actually is.
In the simplest possible terms, a tariff is just an extra tax. So when a product is made in one country and then sold in another, the government of the country buying it collects this tax. The whole point is to make foreign products more expensive.
Okay, this car analogy is a perfect way to see how it works. Imagine an imported car from China costs just 25 grand in the US, but a similar American-made car costs 50 grand. That's some really tough competition for the US company, right? But if the government slaps a 100% tariff on that imported car, boom, its price doubles. Now they both cost $50,000, and all of a sudden that American car looks a lot more appealing. In theory, the playing field is now level.
This brings us to a huge misconception. When this tax gets applied, who actually foots the bill? You'd think it's the country that made the product, right? Nope. And this is the crucial part. The tariff is actually paid by the American company or person who brings that item into the country. So if a U.S. car company imports parts to build its trucks, that U.S. company pays the tax, not the country where the parts were made. And guess what? That extra cost almost always gets passed down the line. And this is really where we get to the heart of the whole debate. You have the textbook theory of why tariffs should work, and then you have the messy reality of what actually happens when you put them into practice. So on paper, the argument for tariffs is pretty straightforward. The idea is you protect your own companies, which should lead to more local jobs. The government also gets to collect a lot more tax revenue, and it can be a really powerful bargaining chip to try and get better trade deals with other countries. But the reality? Well, the reality is often a lot messier. Companies almost always pass that extra tariff cost directly onto you, the consumer, so prices go up. And other countries, they don't just sit there and take it, they retaliate with their own tariffs, and before you know it, you've got a full-blown trade war. And the result of that is usually less trade, less spending, and slower economic growth for everyone involved. And that is exactly what we are seeing happen right now. China, Canada, Europe, they're all gearing up to hit back. It becomes this really dangerous game of chicken, with each country piling on more tariffs, just waiting to see who's going to blink first. And frankly, the uncertainty alone is enough to send the markets into a tailspin. You know, what's so wild about this whole situation is that it's not new. Not at all. We have been down this road before, and history offers a pretty stark warning about how this can all play out. So let's rewind to 1930 and the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. The goal here seemed noble enough: protect American jobs right in the middle of the Great Depression. But the result was a complete disaster. Other countries immediately retaliated. Global trade pretty much ground to a halt, and tons of American companies that relied on exports went out of business. Today, almost every economist agrees that act actually made the Great Depression deeper and last longer. And if you think that's just ancient history, take a look at this. This slide really puts it all into perspective. The tariffs being rolled out today are, by some measures, even higher than they were during the Great Depression. I mean, we are talking about levels that haven't been seen since the 1820s. It's a historical echo that has economists and investors deeply concerned. Okay, so with all this talk about trade wars and market crashes, let's get to the most important question. What in the world does this mean for you?
And how are you supposed to respond as an investor? All right, I'm going to level with you. This quote is pretty blunt, but it highlights a critical truth. Study after study shows that the average investor's returns are just plain terrible. And it's usually because they make big decisions based on fear and greed instead of a clear strategy. The reason is simple: emotional reactions. When the market panics, people panic sell. When things are booming, they jump in at the very top. The effect is so extreme that some analyses have literally shown that a dead person's portfolio can perform better. And why? Because they can't react. They can't log in and mess it up.
So the crucial takeaway here is to have a playbook. Look, you can't control global trade policy, but you can control your own actions. The key is to avoid the temptation to try and time the market. History shows us that the stock market's best days often come right after its worst days. So instead of seeing these tariff-driven downturns as a crisis, just focus on your long-term goals. And please, resist the urge to react to the daily noise.
And that leaves us with this one final thought. In a world full of panic, knee-jerk reactions, and high-stakes economic games, maybe the most powerful move you can make is to have a plan, stick to it, and just resist the urge to react to all the chaos. Sometimes the wisest action is no action at all.